Hello, and welcome to the University of Michigan School of Music, Theatre, and Dance, where we are in the Blanche Anderson Moore Auditorium. We are sitting at the splendid C.B. Fisk organ, their Opus 87, dedicated in 1985, but which we know as the Marilyn Mason organ. We also have here the lady in question herself. How convenient, or HC, as she would say. Professor Mason is now in her 61st year on the University of Michigan faculty, and indeed has set a record as being the longest tenured faculty member in the history of our university. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Marilyn, could we start at the beginning? Please tell us about Alva, Oklahoma.
Yes. Well, Alva, Oklahoma is where I was born and where my parents raised me, but I always, through my life, high school years, I heard about, and early college years too, I heard about the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, because my father had graduated with a law degree in 1911. And he went back to Oklahoma to run his father's bank. My grandfather had established the bank in 1908, and at that moment, Oklahoma was not even a state. It wasn't a state until 1912. So the motto of our bank has always been older than Oklahoma. So, and I worked in that bank quite a bit, different summers, and my father always taught me, he said, don't talk about what people have or what they own in the bank. Don't talk to anybody about what other people have. Be sure, never do that. And you know, that's helped me to carry over all through the years in my teaching and my collegial relations. Don't talk about other things, just talk about the business at hand, or tell a joke, as I usually do.
Yes. I think you came to Michigan in 1944.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And you studied with Palmer Christian, who had a profound impact on you. Please tell us about him.
Well, of course, I was only 22, so I was extremely impressed with him because of his teaching and his wonderful ideas about music. And he was a very handsome man and a handsome dresser. He got all of his, he imported all of his tweeds from a tailor whom he knew in Windsor, Canada. They would go over there and he would be measured and have his suits done. So he's a very immaculate dresser. But he carried that into his teaching. Everything was carefully done. Everything was carefully worked out. There wasn't anything fly by night with Palmer Christian. He was a great man.
Sadly, he died suddenly in 1947, but happily he did hear you play your master's recital a few days before his death.
I think my master's was December the 14th, and February 14th, and then he died on February 17th, aneurysm. Yes. So, but he was a wonderful man.
Yes.
And then so I was sort of on my own because there was no other teacher, and it was just, myself and my other students, very good friends, other friends. Elise Cambone was one, others. But things began to work out, and as I began to graduate, Dr. Moore called me in one day, and he said, you've had made a very good record here. We think we would like to have you stay and teach. So I began teaching, and my resume was about that long, and I didn't have too many recommendations from anybody, but I began and had a wonderful time.
And I think you taught both organ performance and the theory of music?
Yes, I taught theory. My classes in theory were in the tower, and my organ students were at Hill Auditorium on the stage.
After your University of Michigan degrees, you then broadened your education by starting associations with other musicians. True. And for 8 weeks in the summer of 1948, you studied at the Fontainebleau School of Music. True. With Maurice Durouflet and Nadia Boulanger. Tell us about that. I
had such wonderful Wednesday afternoons with Durouflet. He was a great teacher, and he taught an awful lot by example, but also by his own playing. He was a very generous, wonderful man. And then the same morning, we would have our sessions with Boulanger in theory analysis. And she always said, we must develop on stone. We must develop on stone, which meant you have to have a good foundation before you can start on with anything else.
Yes. One of your favorite early works was the Arnold Schoenberg Variations on a Recitative. Didn't you meet him in 1949?
Yes, I did. I was very, very fortunate to have been living in California that summer with my grandparents, and my friend there was Warren Langley. And he came by one time. He said, what are you playing? I said, well, I'm working on these wonderful pieces, variations by Schoenberg. And he said, oh, he said, I've been studying with Schoenberg. I said, you have? So he went to Schoenberg and said, you know, there's this girl from Oklahoma who's playing your piece. And Schoenberg said, that would be fine because I've never heard anybody play it. and really, it's a difficult piece. So he took me into Beverly Hills, and I had about 6 lessons with Schoenberg on that analysis, lessons on the piece. And the interesting thing about it, I think I paid him $25 by each check. I wish I'd kept those checks, because I tell you, to have a signature with Schoenberg. But he was the one that would go into a party in Beverly Hills. He said, I'm Schoenberg and you're not.
Then in 1950, the University of Michigan gave you a leave of absence to attend the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, culminating in your doctorate of sacred music. And when you were at Union, did you meet Cyril Wright?
Of course, of course. He was one of the first people that I met, because by that moment, he was now at St. Paul's Chapel. And he was a wonderful man and such a great influence to me in so many ways. He really loved music.
Did Cyril also invite you to practice at St. Paul's Chapel?
Oh, yes. Many times I practiced there, and we had great conversations all the time. And another very dear friend, a student of Cyril at that moment, was Ralph Nearima. He was always around helping us and enjoying the music. And, you know, the spirit of music was so present with the 3 of us, and other friends that were there, too. Yes.
2 of Cyril's well-known arrangements were Brother James's Air and Greensleeves. Yes. And at the 3 Choirs Festival in England, didn't you play Greensleeves, I think, at Hereford Cathedral? Right.
I was at Hereford. Actually, I want to tell you, I was at Hereford practicing that afternoon of the recital that evening. And I had asked the organist to please listen downstairs. I was up on the screen, of course, listen to the organ for the balance, because that trio is very thin, and those thin pieces, you have to have good balance with the pedals, with the melody. And so indeed, I was playing along, and as I finished, I said, how does it sound? And this stentorian tone came up, sounds wonderful. And there was Cyril Wright.
Oh,
he'd come to the 3 Choirs Festival. He heard me playing his piece.
HC.
How convenient it was.
Yes. What led you to commissioning his introduction, Passacaglia and Fugue?
Well, I had already started commissioning. My first commission was to Edmund Haynes, who was a composer, young composer who came to us at Michigan to teach from Eastman. And I talked to him about writing a piece for me, which he did do. But then that was around 1948, 49. And then later on, I went on, and as I met other people. I met Henry Cowell. He wrote a very nice piece for me. Other composers, and Douglas Moore from New York. So Cyril was there on the scene, and so I said, you've got to write a piece for me. He wrote a very large, strong piece, which is published today in Volume 3 of the Marilyn Mason Library by Morning Star Press.
Yes. While you were in New York City, did you also play at the Riverside Church?
Yeah, several times, many times. Yes. But one particular time that I played there, and the organ is a beautiful instrument, and the whole setting is so wonderful. I was playing, and after the recital was over, a lady came up to me afterwards in the line, and she just said, she said, you know, I just envy you. Well, what can you say when somebody says they envy? I said, well, thank you. She said, I just envy you. You know, I envy you. I wonder if she envies all those hours I had to go back and practice more. Oh, she said, I envy you. You know, you are so lucky. I said, well, actually, the more I practice, the luckier I get. Oh, I want to write that down. I said, please write it down.